Good evening and welcome to this Sunday, June 13th edition of the Island Stats Cricket Show. I'm your host, Earl Basin, and joining me are co-hosts Dean Miners and Andre Doc Manders. Dean, I'm going to start off by saying Doc has let us down. He had a perfect backdrop just now, and because it looked as if we had finally got him on our side, he's changed his background.
Yeah, he did. And
What kind of surprise, Doc?
And the background was blue, and it was beautiful. I mean, it brought out his complexion. You know what it did? It just brought out everything in him. It brought out his complexion. It minimized his age. Duck, why?
Too dark blue. I couldn't have that wrong. Getting close to cup match. No way.
It's just true.
Well, you know, Doc, it's always good to come home and come home. Follow on and come home.
Hey, Earl, I think it was a little bit of rumor there, too, that Doc always had his sights on coming to St. George's.
Yeah.
Doc, are you going to tell us the real story about you really wanted to come to St. George's?
No, Dean. The closest I came was when Carol Bumby-Simon talked to me. That was years ago. And I was thinking about it, but after going to school up Somerset, I said, no, I couldn't do that. Too many friends. Too many friends up there.
Right. Okay.
You played against your friends when you played for Stars?
Yeah, that's true. A lot of them do.
All right. So imagine what it would have been like to play cup match against them.
Wow. I don't know. I think I would have probably been banned from.
So you took your friends over your brother?
Yeah.
When
it comes to that.
Oh, boy, I tell you.
Well, obviously,
one of my brothers played for Somerset, so he was all right.
Yeah.
That's right.
He chose his friends over his brother too.
Yes.
Well, obviously, we still await an announcement from the cricket board when the cricket season will start, what format we'll play. We still await that, and obviously, you know, everyone's still talking about the annual Cup Match Classic. We still don't know all the ins and outs of that either. But today we want to talk about just some of the things that the clubs have to do to put on a cup match any year, not just this year, but any year, and some of the costs behind it. I know a lot of people will feel as if the clubs make a lot of money off of cup match. There's a lot of expenses for cup match as well. As you guys know, as players, you get the behind the scenes of the game itself, but just hearing some of the stuff from the executive, what they do, and then Doc, as a captain, you would probably hear some of the things in meetings that, you know, or you've been privy to some of the things in meetings, what the club is trying to do to ensure that the grounds are prepared for the event, because there's two things that go on a cup match. There's an event and there's the game. The game is what you guys were playing, and the event is what the club has to do to make the grounds ready for the people to be hosted and so forth. And those type of things are the things that we will discuss this evening, as well as, you know, a list of things that the club must have in a check off in order to be prepared for the classic, the 2-day classic, which probably takes them all year, starting when the game ends the year before, to be ready for. Dean, just give us a slight, I guess, your take on some of the things you saw going on at the club, because you live right next door to the club, in preparation for cup match, and you would have seen it even during football season.
Yeah. As you know, I'm a stone throw away from the club. So normally what I would go ahead and see, definitely after the last cup match, or in preparation. Off the top of my head, of course, you know, we talk about, let's say the club has to be painted. The grounds have to be, you know, of course, cleared, the scaffolding. People have to be placed in the scaffolding. And then, you know, of course, you're talking about the vendors. So what I used to see, actually growing up, what I used to see is camps being made. That was the fun part for me, when you see the camps being erected. So, of course, you would see the vendors, they have their setup. But then you'll see everyone with their camps, of course, sorting out their spaces. So that was back in the day when you're talking about the wooded camps, being set up, and everyone would have their individual space. And the best part about that was the family members. You knew which family would sit in what spot. And St. George's, I could visually see, PHC used to be right in front of the Blue House. And then, of course, my cousin Bronchi and Delbert and the family, they used to be down in the corner, and then my grandpa Connie used to be on top of the school board. So, and you will see, and the Fogos used to be just off the hill, and so you knew exactly where everyone would sit. And then you got that image of Bojangles, and he will be speaking to, on the eastern end, he will be speaking to the tourists, because the tourists used to have their little section cornered off, and this was actually, it used to start actually in May. You're talking about early part of May that you will get people starting to, putting camps together, and you'll see people coming to the club. You'll see them paying for the spots. So of course it was, it's like a huge production. That's what it was. It's a production behind the scenes. But that's, like I said, that's just off the top of my head. But what I used to go ahead and see.
Yeah. Now, Doc, when you became captain up there, you would spend even more time around the club in preparation for Cup match. But what are some of the things you saw going on at Somerset in preparation for Cup match?
I tell you what, Earl, I didn't really get to a lot of the stuff that was happening off the field. Being that I was captain, my main thing was the players and getting the players in shape, and basically getting the Cup match trials, going. But I did see, I'll tell you what, it started in January, because when I was captain, I had a meeting with Somerset Cricket Club. And I know they started in January, talking about, even though the game itself was up in Somerset, they invited St. George's, president at the time, vice president, and members, executive members up there for meetings to finalize Cup match, and they talked about what was happening off the field. And I'm talking about in January. So, if Cup match, it's in August, and they were starting in January. And when I met with the club, my issue was every time we talked, when I was in it was with the captain, like Vandal's captain there, Vandal Smith.
Right.
And basically, we would just go along with what they say, but it's a lot of preparation that's involved. Remember, they got to get they got to meet with the police. They have to meet with. It's so much things, Also, working with BTC, they even have to get BTC there to put lines in, internet lines, telephone lines, and it's so much work that has to be done. But like I said, my emphasis was mainly on, being that it was my first year, Cup match. It was basically worrying about the players, getting the players in shape, and trying to organize training sessions with the coach at the time. It was Winston Reed. We had different coaches, but it was so much to be done off the field. And when I went to that meeting, it was like, geez, I didn't know that all this stuff had to be happening. Before, I just wanted to play.
Right.
Once you be captain, and then you see what's got to be done in the back, it's like, it's a lot of work that has to be done.
Yeah.
That's why I'm thinking, like, I don't really know how they're going to do it this year. If we started in January, and here it is almost mid-June, and cricket's not playing, so it's going to be a lot of work for St. George's. Actually, not just St. George's, both clubs, because Somers is involved with most of the decisions anyway. You know what I mean? So it's going to be difficult, but I really don't know how they're going to do it. But like I said, I hope it is done. But
well, one of the things that the club are gonna, what they primarily do at the beginning is decide what their budget's going to be for the event. And when I say the budget, meaning what do they have to pay out in order for the game to get underway. They purchase in the years gone by. There's been the purchase of the scaffolding. It's been the purchasing of the ice, the machine that's going to store the ice, the liquor, You have to have, the security. You have to make sure that you have your people on the gates. You have to then make sure that you have people for the bathrooms to make sure they remain clean and all that. You also have to have people on duty to do whatever, bartenders, all that type of stuff. There has to be somebody that has to set out a plan to accomplish that goal. What will that look like? And then obviously you break it down into different areas. They go away, figure out what it's going to cost for them, and then come back. And then it's all put together, and then you have to go from there. And then if you're the host club, you remember you have to also the visiting club has to be taken care of as well in various ways. So that has to be factored in as well. And but a lot of people just see the game, But what has to go on with people doing it part-time, both ends of the island, it's a monumental task. I mean, Dean, you would know. I mean, we talk about players, but then the contracts have to be signed in order for the vendors to do things, and those things have to be signed in legal form, because now you're bringing in lawyers, outside entities, all that type of stuff has to be done for this game to get good.
And Errol, I mean, you true to form. I mean, even after the game, there is, and I remember, I mean, you're talking about the game, but it's a massive cleanup.
Yep.
It's a massive cleanup.
Because generally there's a game on the weekend.
You got a massive cleanup during the game, after the first day's play. I mean, I remember seeing Brian, and, he's got his and you have his team that are actually going around and they're cleaning up, because remember, the next day's play, the whole field has to be clean. And you also have to, of course, shut down the gates for security purposes. Once everyone leaves, just shutting down the gates, making sure everyone's out. So a cleanup can basically be there for the next day. And then I remember on the Saturday, again, there was another cleanup. So when you're talking about, and then also getting the rescue service involved, they have to be on hand, at all times. I mean, right now, of course, they have to be on hand because of the heat. But, everyone has to be, like you said, definitely in sync. And above all, I mean, like you said, the police have to be well informed about everything that is actually going on. Remember, you don't want a breach of security. Certain clubs are not allowed to have certain people into their venues, for security reasons. So that has to be, all that has to be vetted. So it's like you said, it's a monumental production that actually goes on.
Yeah.
And also, you guys, you got to remember, the health department has to come to check the or the stalls and stuff too. And then the fire department, just in case it's a lot of things that has to be done. That's some of the stuff that we're not even copy the meeting I hear, and I'm like, they check the health, and I'm just realizing it's hot, 2 days of sun, so the health department's got to make sure people's eating. If a fire breaks out, the fire department has to be notified or in the area. So it's like I said, of course, the police. It's so much things that has to be done, and it's. I just hope that can be done. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we can say that both clubs have. I'm hoping that they have what would be considered a checklist that they do on a normal basis. And obviously, with St. George's this year, being in the position they're in, that checklist would have to be scaled down a little bit, but they would still have the list to do. But when I talk about scaled down, I'm talking about in the number sense of the amount of things that would be required in each category to make sure that you meet the needs of having the event and the game itself. So as you said, Doc, it's going to be a challenge. But I think with the blueprint that the clubs have had at their grounds, I think it's something they can pull off. What the game would look like, that's to be seen, or But I think from a club standpoint, there are ways that they can pull it off, given the backing of the sponsors, government, and the fans themselves. Because believe it or not, there are a lot of people that are talking about they don't want to see cup match, but there's more people talking about they want to see cup match. They want to be around an environment that allows them to feel that normalcy. Really, really. I mean, we saw that Bermuda Day. We saw, you on the side of the road, you saw people smiling, having a good time, because they got that freedom. They got that sense of they were out and they were able to do something. Yeah.
Well, what is a bit shocking to me is, and I have to point this out, I was looking at the TV last night, and I was looking at the highlights of England versus New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly thought it was an old game, right? I honestly thought it was an old game. And it was actually England playing New Zealand.
Right.
People sitting next to each other, no mask on. And I'm just thinking to myself, okay, something's not adding up right here, right? But yeah, you see this game, and then also today, I spoke with someone, and they were telling me at Wembley, I think there was 8,000. What was it? 8,000 people or something. It was a little bit more than that at Wembley, but everyone was just sitting around. So it just took me back, and I was just like, okay, all right, okay, So I started to, try to process, but you can't process so much because you don't. You just have to be. But again, I mean, I guess the only point that I make is that I know that we have the cricket season among us, but I know the other thing is the county game.
Mm-hmm.
They must be also, if there is a scaled down cup match. Will they go ahead and do something to those requirements as well? Because that's another. We have to remember it's cricket season, and that's another big event.
Right.
Of course, on our calendar.
Mm-hmm.
When we're talking about now, is that going to affect the Western counties or Central counties?
Right.
How is it going to affect all cricket, or have they decided not to play any counties at all?
That's just the thing. We haven't heard from anyone regarding. What their next move is. To be honest, I think they're waiting for the final word from the health department and government on what they're ultimately going to be allowed to do as far as spectators or people in general, the total number, and then how they figure that out, I guess, before they say anything. Because right now, if they say something, they may have to say something different tomorrow because they'll get information today or tomorrow that you're only going to be allowed this and that. And that's why one of the reasons why I haven't really contacted the cricket board or Eastern County or, and for that sake, cup match about this year, because until they hear and get that finalization of the approval, the final approval, what can they tell you? Yeah. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll talk more about cup match and Eastern County and cricket in general.
We're welcoming back the often featured Whole Food veterans Bragg Live Food Products, renowned for their live probiotic organic raw cider vinegar and savory seasonings. Paul Bragg is the man behind the products that has originated health food stores, restaurants, and spas, and promoted nutrition education through the media, helping lay the foundation for the enlightened way we make healthful choices when we shop for and prepare food. This month we're featuring Bragg Organic Raw and Unfiltered Apple Cider Vinegar and Organic Extra Virgin Olive Oil. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
Doc, you was about to make a point there?
Yeah, I was saying my main concern is even if they both clubs agree to play, then again it's getting the players in shape and ready to play cricket. I know some teams are training now, but training and actually playing 2 days of cricket, it's going to be difficult. That's why I was hoping that, I think they said June 19th the season's supposed to start. I don't know how many wickets are ready, or what's the protocols for the players going into the cricket season. The only nice thing about it now, we have no new cases of the coronavirus.
Right.
That's good. You know what I mean? But we still have to put these protocols in place. Dean was saying earlier about the spectators at the game in England, but I'm pretty sure that they had to have a PCR test. I think that's one of the things what we're going to have to hear, or be
Right.
vaccinated. I'm not too sure, but most of those players, even at the Euros today, it was a lot of, and like Dean said, it ain't no 60, it ain't no distance in, they're close by. Some's not wearing masks. You know, they're jumping up and down when England scored, they're hugging, and so. And you know, and they have like a lot of new cases, more cases than
Right.
us. So with our cup match, it's you got to think about it, it's almost the same thing. Like you know, when teams catch wickets or nice catch, sometimes the spectators enjoy it more than the players. You think
Yeah.
they hug
They
and
do.
kiss it,
They do.
you know?
They do.
So,
But can you imagine the bars and the restaurants around the place too? Because they're generally full. When England play, the stadium could be packed, but
Yes.
the bars and the restaurants around the stadium are also just as packed. So you could imagine. So they tell everybody you got to be seated. When England score, that goes out the door.
no.
It's a rule
all
to
of
be
that goes
broken.
out the door. Yeah. So totally understand it. But so Dean, let's do a little more of that. What is required to actually get cup match done? I mean, we already mentioned the fact that you got to meet with the police. You got to have an idea of what's going on, how that security is going to work, and then the other thing is that one of the major things is the broadcast. This year will probably be the most lengthiest of talks about how that will work, because if you're limiting the amount of people that could go to the game, what are we doing for the people who will not be allowed to go to the game? What will that look like?
Yeah. Well, what I'm hearing, Earl, is that, well, they're saying 4,000, right? So let's hypothetically say they say 4,000 people are allowed to come to the game. Okay. So how do you distinguish that? Do you say, of course, as you've already mentioned, do you say vaccinated, unvaccinated? Do you also go ahead and say the PCR test? Within that 4,000 people, you then have to scale down and say, okay, let's look at the club officials. Let's minimize the players. Let's minimize the vendors. So once you start umpires, once you start to scale down security, police, fire services inside, once that is scaled on, then who are you left with? And that is a major concern, because you have those are essential workers that have to be there on site. So how do you know? And again, it being televised. No, one of the points that you had to admit was it being televised. But then how do you, because right now we can mix households. So if you have it televised and you have it pay-per-view, then what happens? You have it for, are you able to make money off it? Because you might have it televised for, let's hypothetically say, it's pay-per-view for $50. Oh, well, it's easy. Earl, Doc, come down. Come over my house. I've got 60, because these things have to be thought about. I've got a 60-foot barbecue in the back. You guys help me pay for, the pay-per-view. Done deal. And so now we've got a barbecue, couple of birds, and then we're straight. So I think even if we was, because I know a lot of people in a lot of sectors are saying, let's have a pay-per-view, let's have it televised, but then there could be a loss associated with it there as well.
The challenge of not having it open to all those who would want to go to the game, and obviously if you go to the game, it's a cost to go to the game. But because I think you're now saying you can't, then kind of putting it as pay-per-view is kind of putting a sour note in one regard. I know you want to make the money off of it, but I could see it pay-per-view if it was open and you chose not to come. But you might want to go, but you can't, because I don't know how they'll do the ticket sales. Obviously, the members of both clubs will be offered tickets first. That's first and foremost. I can see that happening. That will be without a doubt.
Okay.
And then how they get the rest of the tickets out there, I just don't know. But the one thing that in thinking about it and talking, just bantering around, what is the limit that a person what is the limit a member can buy?
Ooh, much consideration. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because if
Right.
you're a member and you go to the meeting and they say at the meeting, you can get a spot, but it's got to be paid for by this date. Can I turn around and get 5 spots as long as I pay for it? And then I either sell those spots or I give them to people who give me money to do so, who are not members. How does that work?
And we're talking about a 6-week frame.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also,
Concern, I think the biggest. I'm sorry, Doc. I think the biggest concern I have is. Sorry, Doc. Go ahead.
No, I say, now how do you, if someone wants to get back to it, because I know you guys all want to join. If Dean have it, let me check. Dean would have 3,000. If it's 4,000 allocate, Dean wants 3,500 St. George's fans, right? And he's gonna give 500 to
Somerset
Somerset.
fans.
So
Yeah. No, I
so-
honestly think what they will do when I say members, they will share their membership list, both clubs. And obviously St. George's would have to allot, if Somerset have 230 members, then they would have to allot 230 ticket spots for Somerset members. Now, whether or not the 230 take it, you know what I mean? But I honestly think it has to be a shared sacrifice and allow
yeah.
both equal, you know what I mean? To make sure that there's a balance. Because who knows? We might have to do this again next year.
Yeah, that's an important
Yeah.
point, girl. That's a very important point.
Yeah. And
Because
you don't
now
want
we
to be
just- yeah.
you don't want to be left out. You know? So
So
you know,
have a lot
I
of
just think
you have a lot of former cup match players like Dean and myself, right?
right.
Now, like, it's got to be over 100, 200. Maybe I'm just talking. I'm just throwing that out there. So normally, former cup match players are allowed into the game. So, what about them? What about these seniors? That always come. Some of these seniors have been cup match 40, 50 years, and I know a lot of them. Somerset, right? The
Right.
ladies on the heels. That's my fans.
Yep.
Dean know
Right.
about these ladies anyway. Girls on the heel. I'm sorry, that's what they're called, girls on the heel. So it's a lot of like cut match spectators out there that's probably waiting to see what government's saying, if it's 4,000, 5,000, whatever it's going to be.
Right. Right.
It's
I-
going to be interesting to see how we're gonna decide who's coming to cut match. It's good.
Right.
If you think about it, normally first day, 4,000 people is probably
Average.
sometimes you get more average, but the second day, could be you could roughly be between 7 to 10 people there easy. Second day, and I'm seeing that. But first day 4,000, maybe you probably could get away with it. I'm not too sure, but then again, with all the COVID restrictions and stuff, some people might want to stay away.
Right.
So we need to know what we're working with. So both clubs can come up with either how they're going to do it.
Right. Right. Dean, you can say something?
No, I was thinking about what Doc was saying about the average. I mean, I know within the past years. I mean, I think there's been from over the 2 days. Somebody was saying it was up to almost 8,000. Over the 2 days. Like Doc was saying. I mean, the numbers have increased. I mean, I remember a few years back that the numbers had started to down spiral. And now, we've seen this emergence of cup match starting to gain momentum all over again. And my fear, like you said, my biggest fear is because the momentum is starting to increase, especially with the scaffolding and increase with the coverage. the live coverage, and just the whole spectacle. I believe that it's unfortunate that COVID hit, but I believe that the momentum was starting to evolve itself all over again, with new players being injected into the game. We've seen a lot of new players within the last few years, stepping into the game, and people wanting to see, these new players. Also with last 2 years ago, the success of the 2020 tournament in the Bermuda team, but we're seeing young players starting to come. We're seeing it all over again. So, again, I just think that my fear is a watered down cup match. And because it's a great opportunity for the youngsters now to see the importance of it. And it's, even if we don't have it and something else being actually put on, I think them understanding the significance of cup match and the importance of cup match is very important. I just think them to see the clubs make a bold decision and say, well, listen, because it's so important and it's the pinnacle of our calendar year, and it's so important, but we're not going to have, due to the fact, then I just think I don't want to lose the value. That's my fear. That's my biggest fear.
A lot of people are torn between the two. You want to see a good game, but you don't want to see a watered down cup match. Yeah. And the concern is that we haven't started to play cricket as of yet. We over the last few years, we've seen, I guess, what people saw back in the 60s, where the game could have been over in one day. So I get the point that we have to look out for the health and safety of the players, because it's quite hard to be out there 2 days, and if you haven't put your body through that type of training in the last few months, it could be very dangerous in many ways. Rather it be a player that picks up an injury that could have been prevented had they been training for a little while, or had they been playing for a little while. You don't want to see that. You don't want to see a guy, or you don't want to see the game end the way it ended the last time we played, because the last memory is of someone being hit, unfortunately, and the game coming to an end. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. You don't want it to be a result of that, due to the lack of fitness, due to the lack of playing, due to the lack of anything involving the players. You want the game to be played in its entirety, no matter what the result will be, but you don't want to see a watered down game. We're going to take another commercial break, and when we come back, we'll have more.
We're spotlighting our old friends Woodstock Farms, who started up 50 years ago in the belief that we need more trustworthy natural food sources. Starting with one product, their line, mostly certified organic, is now more than 250 strong in 10 categories. This month we're featuring accoutrements of the barbecue, for us the pinnacle of home cuisine and one of the few forms of restorative recreation now within our reach. Try Woodstock Organic Sweet Relish, Tomato Ketchup, Baby Kosher Dill Pickles, Sauerkraut, and Hickory and Original Barbecue Sauce. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
When we talk about the classic, and we'll throw in county as well, and no matter which county it is, because I think everybody has the same thing where people buy spots, and what is required of them in those spots are kind of legal things that you're only allowed to do at the grounds, that you're not allowed to do at the grounds, and all that. And that requires meetings and information being handed out to ensure that the person that's buying the spot understands what the rules and regulations are. And obviously, with restrictions this year, it's even more important to actually meet with those spot holders for these events to go over it maybe 2 or 3 times, because they're going to have questions. They're going to have concerns. They're going to want to do what they normally do. And playing cup match, Eastern County, Western County, Central County, people love to gather. Yeah. They like to go and see their friends. They like to have a drink with their friends and so forth. So, there might be a time where there's 30 people in one spot. You know what I mean? Yeah. But that's how Bermudians and people that come down for these festival events, that's how they behave. That's how we act. That's true. So it's going to be important that the health department stipulate clearly, and we know people will read something and interpret it some way different, and then say, well, what about? I guess the one thing that the clubs or the organizations who are putting on the events have to be clear about is there can't be no what about at this short time, because there's no time to negotiate.
That's right.
If the club spends more time negotiating what the health department's trying to get through, the event would never happen.
Right.
If it's just one person that keeps going back and forth because they can't have their way, the event won't happen because they're taking too much time on that one group or one thing that's holding the game up or the event up. You know what I mean? We're gonna have to move on. If this is what they say, because the window has almost closed.
Yeah.
And if they say they're gonna have this event, the window would be closed and you just have to move on.
Well, I mean, Errol, I think you're so right. I mean, I think that with all events that are happening, not only in Bermuda, but I think worldwide, I think in most events, we're going to have a health and safety officer that's going to be there to guide us through. Because now we have to, with all the events that are happening now, we have to restructure, our entire setup.
Mm-hmm.
Which is very interesting. We have to just restructure everything that we've done in the past, and we have to look at it in a whole new light.
Yeah.
And I think moving forward in this whole setup, it's going to be completely, of course, completely different. And in saying that, I'm wondering, I know, and I'm going to ask you to forgive me, but I sent, I call it the encyclopedia of organization, and when it comes to cricket and organization, she's absolutely phenomenal. I know she's gonna kill me for doing this, but I had to get in contact with Charlotte today. Charlotte Simons. I had to get in contact because I wanted to ask the question of what goes on behind. How she admitted, she says, Dean, I haven't been there for a while, but off the top of my head, there were a number of things that she said to me, and it really made me think. And she basically went ahead, and I just want to read it off to share, with everyone, but I also want to give, just to say she's absolutely phenomenal. So she just sent me these things when we're talking about in preparation for Cup match, right? She says, and just bear with me. She says, committee meets to prepare a budget with the assistance of the respective auditors. Okay, so she says usually the start of the groundwork is by September, following just the ending of Cup match. All right, so that was the first thing. It says committee meets to prepare a budget with the assistance of the respective auditors, meeting held on a weekly basis. That's going back in September.
Mm-hmm.
An assessment on the work to be done to the inside and outside of the club.
Yes.
Various contractors to be contacted, masons, electrical, etc. Contact the lead sponsor to set up meetings. Also, meetings start with the police, ongoing. Contact other potential sponsors. Seating company, broadcasting, TV, radio, internet. And then, hopefully most are contacted by December. Work begins with contractors with a deadline by May. Meetings with the opposition begins in January, usually 3 meetings. At the meetings, the respective club host outlines their progress on any work. Correspondence to various entities. This is number 10. Broadcasting, including radio, TV, media, internet, etc. At number 11, January meetings with persons interested in operating stalls. That's the vendors. That's in January.
Mm-hmm.
Number 12, meetings with the health department. All vendors must have a license to operate. Meeting with the fire department. Number 13, February and March, dates set for the health and fire departments meet with the various vendors to outline all regulations. Electricians is also in attendance. February, all contracts with sponsors, broadcasting, seating stalls, caterer, printing of invitations, vendor for Crown and Inca should be finalized, if not February, no later than March. February and March, field logo company to be confirmed. February and March, plywood, if have to be ordered, should be done for arrival no later than April, including tarpaulin for seating. Meetings with all seating holders, this is number 17. Meetings with all seating holders should be finalized by May with their deposit payments, April, and final in June. 18. All payments from vendors, sponsors, no later than May and June. 19. May team preparations begins confirming staff, team sponsors for uniforms, accommodation, transport, drinks, meals, supplies for team. The above to be finalized by the end of May, June. Staff meetings in May and June for gate personnel, cleaners, grounds, persons, bar staff, and other staff. Work in and outside the club should be completed. This is in May. Sitting starts in May, completed in early July. June, all invitations to guests sent. Gate tickets, bar tickets, office staff, office supplies, all in order by end of June. Pitch ground equipment staff should all be in place in June. Final meeting for both clubs finalized end of June. Challenge letter to be sent to the club who has the cup 1 month before cup match. July, Titan all loose ends. This is in July. Titan all loose ends. Team events, arrival of seating up at the club decorations. Number 29, media interviews with all stakeholders outline the do's and don'ts for the holiday. And then you're basically just hoping for a good 2 days.
And that's off the top of our head.
And I want to thank, I really want to thank
Yeah.
Molly for that information. I mean, it, of course, that is a production in itself.
Right. And that's the behind the scenes things done in order for people to show up over the 2 days and enjoy themselves. And you see how far back that started. And the finish line was just before the game.
Yeah. And to be honest, I mean, you know, and that's off the top of my head. I mean, the thing is, I think there are so many other others to be added on.
Right.
But when you're talking about how extensive that is for the production, yeah, that's pretty.
And you know, Dean, over the years, you know, even talking with Molly and talking with others who have been through the executive side of both clubs, man, you know, those are some sleepless nights because you would knock off from work and you have to then finalize your task. Your task could be any one of those 30 things or any 5 of those 30 things. And you have to do that kind of during work hours, after work hours. You know, there's still things to be done at the club to you know, all that type of stuff. So yeah, it's a tall order, man. It is a tall order. You know, Doc was getting the team ready.
That was my job.
And that was a tough one too.
So Doc, in your preparation, so Doc, did you have to?
Yeah,
how often did you have to meet as a captain, right? So how often did you have to meet with the club and discuss in your if you wanted to change preparations? How did that work?
Well, my manager at the time was Kevin Saunders, and I'm glad you mentioned Molly. Molly was on the exec with Reginald Pyramid, so they done a lot of the work. All I do is just speak to one of the cricket manager at the time was Kevin Saunders. I spoke to him. Anything I needed cricket wise, right? I'll go to them. They have if they can't get it, they have a meet with the members, especially on cup match. They want to know how the training's going when cup match training starts, right? Cup match trials, all that, getting the wicket prepared, and then making sure all the players has paid their dues, right? I know all these down St. George, but you have to pay your dues playing the cup match trial. I'm sure it's like that down St. George's. So that was mainly all the stuff I had to make sure, and then off the field, thank goodness, I didn't have to deal with all. Could you imagine me had to deal with some mess of the, and they had to, and you got to remember, when I was captain, it was 2 years about, not that year, not the year about one. So my main concern, of course, when it was up Somerset, right, that don't lose it going on. It was not like cup match is a money making thing. So they're taking all that off the captaincy, which is good, right? So now captains and players to just concentrate and go there and play the game, and they don't have to worry about the extra hour in the game. Makes it more exciting. Remember you was talking about it earlier, Dean. You were saying that cup matches getting exciting. If you look at the last 3 cup matches, it's been exciting. It's been victorious, or like the one down St. George Royal Reign, that could have been impossible. But the last 3 or 4 cup matches, it's been results and it's been exciting. So, like you said, the spectators has come back. But now we haven't played in 2 years. I'm wondering if they're getting the comeback with all the protocols and this mask. I'm pretty sure we're not going to be wearing a mask or every time. Maybe just going into the club. I don't know what the goal's going to be. But it's demanding, it's getting the players ready. That's what I'm worried about. And the protocols in place for our players that they need to do, and with the spectators and the clubs too. So that's the main thing there. And that's going to be difficult to do with some of the club members and the players, like, adhering to the rules. Hopefully they can. I'm not going to have a decent cup match. I like it for it to be traditional, but it's not going to be that. I've got to come to terms that it's not going to be like that. It's got to be some protocols, and we just have to all accept it. If not, it's not going to be cup match.
Yeah.
Just real quick, I'm thinking about, do you think it will be a challenge for both captains to monitor the players? I mean, you're talking about before, I think, in this whole situation now, do you think players are going to have to be sort of guided through this whole process? Do you think it'll be a challenge for a captain?
I personally think it's going to have to be, the club's going to have another manager, because the captain has to worry about so many things going on the field. He's not going to be able to manage the players off the field as well. Because remember, if he's at the wicket, even if him and the vice captain are at the wicket, you have a manager that's taking care of the cricket stuff, but you're going to need another manager to do the COVID stuff, to do the things that that is required by the health department.
Yeah.
That's interesting. You said that, Earl. I was thinking about, even you said an extra manager. Normally in cup match, what we have 2 reserves, right?
Right.
I'm thinking you might need to have another reserve for all the protocols, like with the hand sanitizers and stuff like that. You might have an extra player, because if it is going to be played, that ball that they use can have to be every, I don't know, they say 6 overs, it might be more. I think maybe 10 overs a cup match. The hands got to be hand sanitized. The players have to they have to do all that. So, and they can't keep that on the field. So that means somebody's got to run on the field to do all that. So you're going to need an extra player for all that too.
Yeah.
I think what came to mind was the England pace bowler, and I know they were playing, and I think he went home for some reason.
Yeah.
Archer went home for some reason.
Yeah, went home. Mm-hmm.
And then of course he went ahead and broke the bubble.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course they had to do that. So I think explaining to the players the importance of the bubble.
Yeah.
If you were to do this.
Right. Well, let's take our last commercial break, and we have a question when we come back from the break. Very interesting question.
John Barrett & Son, Bermuda's favorite distributor of fine beverages, has brought us a new and refreshing thirst quencher just in time for the approaching warm weather. Hint Water in 7 luscious flavors. Hint Water is slaking the thirst of active people who need pure hydration, low on the glycemic index, and want the kind of taste experience that keeps them coming back to try the next flavor. For those who've been giving water a miss, Hint may win you over. Hint Water. No sugar, no additives, all flavor. Lynn knows. Why go anyplace else?
And welcome back. The question is, Do you think the players and officials should go into a bubble as soon as the teams are selected on Saturday night? Now, we know that after your team is selected on Saturday night, generally there's a league game, or there could be a league game the next day. What does that club do? The other thing is the clubs would have to think about having 2 alternate players as well as your reserves, only because if someone tests positive in the lead up to the game, you could use one of those alternate players and or a reserve to fill that spot. But you don't want to be calling up players to join the bubble on the Tuesday or the Wednesday that haven't been through the whole protocol thing. So how do they manage something of that regard? Because it's going to be interesting, because we don't know how it's transmitted. You could be negative today, positive tomorrow, negative the next day.
Yeah. I would definitely say I agree to that. No, I totally agree. I totally agree that you would have to put players in a bubble. Sorry, go ahead, Andre.
No, I was saying, I saw what Norbert saying for COVID officer. We probably going to need that for both days too.
Yes.
I think that's an interesting point.
I think both clubs will need a compliance officer.
Off the field. Compliance officer, yeah. I think they'll probably need, because sometimes the players are going to get caught up in the game, and some of the rules might be broken. It's easy.
Yes.
It's cup match. The players are not used to that. So if you have somebody there that fills them in, that's there with the players or with the management, so all this stuff doesn't happen. And then, that make the transition a lot easier too.
Right. Now, what's interesting is, obviously, our changing rooms in both St. George's and Somerset are not the biggest in the world. Having guys, how does that work? Because those things are tight, and talking about a closed-in area, what do we do now? Do we in St. George, do we make the pavilion bigger, close it in where they change in the under the tent, or is a structure built proper structure built that's bigger, or what happens? Because you can't have everybody changing up outside. It's cup match, literally. Some way, shape, or form, some negotiation has to be done, whether it be 3 or 4 guys in the change room at a time, or whatever, 5 or 6 guys in the change room at a time. But remember, if they're all in a bubble, they all come on the same. No, that's the funny part. They all come on the same bus, just like when they go to school. They all go to school on the same bus. Get off the bus. You can't be with this person. You can't be with that person. The rules change when you get to a different location. It's got to be more sensible. If the players are in a bubble from the start, as long as they don't intermingle between the 2 clubs, why can't they all be in the change room at the same time? They all eat together. They all go to. Well, apparently, COVID don't get you when you're sitting at a table, because you can take your mask off and have a conversation with as many people as around you as possible. But the minute you walk around the room, you got to put your mask on. So, I mean, it's confusing. But then, if two dining room tables can fit in the change rooms, that means 10 people can sit at one table. 10 people, they got enough guys to be in the change room at the same time. I don't know, Dean.
Look, I guess you're right. I mean, there's things we have to take into consideration, but you said it at best. I think they would have to provide a tent. And then if you do allow 3 or 4 players inside the change room, you have to disinfect and then allow the other, 3 and 4 to come inside the change room. So, but I mean, I'm hoping I'm hoping that this conversation that we are having is generating a thought-provoking, because I do have people coming up to me, asking me, what are my thoughts and this sort of, and I just told them, I just said, here are my thoughts. It's a lot to consider. And I think that I'm glad that we're looking at all these things to be considered, before we go ahead and move forward and make a final decision.
Simon's on a roll because lunchtimes you guys usually eat together.
No, you can't. You wouldn't be able to.
Well,
You wouldn't be able to. And guess what? And the other thing is, in moving forward, this might be completely different as well. If we're not out of the woods within a year's time, so this might be common practice for us, eating in separate ways. But yeah,
but here lies the problem, Dean. If something like that, now the club has to figure out where to put one team and where to put another team to have lunch, because upstairs they have their guests.
Yes,
You've created now we're creating another whole problem. Or do you not have guests on day one until after lunch to allow the players to come up, have their lunch, and then go back out? And then I mean, the scenarios, man, I would hate to be part of trying to figure this out.
Yeah, it jeopardizes a lot. I mean, and I think the other thing is we also have to consider Colts Cup match.
Yeah.
Consider Colts Cup match, because that is also, I mean, of course it's weighed on in September, but also at the same time, but I personally believe that I think educating the players of the importance, if you're going to have it, you have to put them within I don't know if you want to consider it a workshop, to say, this is how it's going to be. If you can handle it, if you cannot handle it, you have to give them that option. You cannot just tell the players that, you know what, we're picking you, we're selecting you, and not sort of giving him the expectations. Because that moving forward is going to be changed for a lot of players. The expectations are going to be different, sharing bats and, sharing gloves and those sort of things. It's going to change, and it's going to be frightening for a lot of players. And have we also considered that for our league games? Does all the players know the expectations? Does all the players know that, you got to have your own cup and you go to the water jug? Well, bottles are going to be provided. So, and that's all in safekeeping. So I think that we really have to get that message open.
Yeah, I was going to ask Doc, because he's worked with a lot of the youngsters. Doc, early on, I guess, what was the board's message to coaches that were working with youngsters with regards to the protocols?
The protocols we had in place earlier, when we were training with under 19s, we had to use everybody to bring their own water bottles, right? And the manager had hand sanitizer there, took our temperature. That's the first thing when you came training, take your temperature. We had to do that too. Everybody had their own hand sanitizers, and we was doing that. You put your water bottle, close to you, and then we only had like 10 players training. We was trying to, you can't keep them 6 feet because you're playing, but I'm saying we was trying our best to keep the players away. We was doing a lot of fielding, so it's not like football is a contact sport, but the main thing was take the temperature, hand sanitizer, wearing the mask when they come and when they leave, right? Take it off, and like I said, it was only 10 players at the time training.
Wow.
That was early. And then when we had the outbreak, we had to stop. So everybody was doing those protocols.
Right. I'm fast forwarding and thinking, what happens cup match when or if one of the teams win with the spectators?
It's over. It's over.
If St. George's was to win, I don't think you would have enough security at the gate to stop the people that would come in to watch the final over. How do you police that? Come on. It's been a number of years, and those are the type of things that you would have to think about right away. People's going to want to be around a celebration. People's going to want to, and even Somerset people, another victory in St. George's. You're not going to be able to stop the people and the joyness. And when we talk about the youngsters, when these youngsters take a wicket in Colts Cup match, You don't think they're going to want to celebrate? Somebody's going to have a whistle just to blow, to stop them.
Oh, listen, you're telling me I haven't had cup match in 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
St. George's wins. And I'm got all my St. George's fans outside the gate. But let that gate open, boy. Let that gate open, boy. What? Are you serious? Duck, I'm opening up the gate. I'll get bolt cutters. I'm getting bolt cutters, mate. Yeah.
I don't think they'll have enough security or police on the inside to stop them. But they're not coming in. They're not coming in to be disruptive. They're coming in to celebrate.
Hey, look,
it's with a different type of atmosphere.
But the police and the security for St. George's, they'll be celebrating too. Seriously.
Sorry, health department.
Yeah, sorry. Hey, look. We tried our best. We told them we're masked.
I noticed somebody likes to wear light blue and dark blue, but also wants to talk about this for Somerset. Dennis Brown is saying another 2-1 for Somerset. The game will be over by 4 p.m. on Friday. Okay. Martin Luther had a dream too.
Somerset.
Hey, listen. Earl, listen.
You guys are upset these supporters.
Oh, listen. Earl, listen. Let me tell you something about Mr. Braun. Every cup match I played, at Somerset, he always welcomed me first thing in the morning. Every time I went behind the stumps, yeah. And all he would say, and this is tradition, right? All he would say, "Good morning, Mr. Minus." Yeah, not today, see? Not today. And that was it for the rest of the day. So and true to form, and I was just and my cup match could not, even before ball was built, I'll go down there, do my market for the pace builder, and Mr. Minus, not today, see? Got on my nerves, not today. Yeah.
Well, this is his chance of getting you back, Mr. Minus, because he couldn't get on top of you when you was playing, so
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But there's still plenty to be talked about. There's still plenty, and I am really, really, really hoping that by this week, it's out. What are the requirements? What are the regulations? What is needed? What the numbers are? I honestly feel, I'm hoping that some clarity could be given on Tuesday night. If we keep heading in the direction we're heading in, can the numbers of people allow the cup match increase? Because if we're below the threshold of what they're considering, if we reach that 70% herd immunity that they've been talking about, but never give you what happens when we reach it, then why not allow more people to go? We got to stop penalizing the people that are doing all the right things because a handful of people are doing the wrong things. And until we get to that point, I think we have to start looking at the positive side. We have a lot of people who want to get back to normalcy and are doing everything that's needed, required. You say wear a mask when you're in public. You say do this. You say do that. You say get immunized. You say this. You say that. But what is the reward? The reward for the people who got immunized early is nothing. But the people who are now begging to get immunized are getting dinners, gifts, all sorts of things. What about the people who followed the rules? When will they be rewarded? And I think cup match will be the thing.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm just on the other side. I'm just hoping that the players, not knowing what could potentially happen, I would say to them, do your actions, do your training, do whatever 6 weeks. It's more than enough time for you to fully commit. And if the go ahead is, and the clubs require players to train 5 nights a week or 4 nights a week with 1 night off, and we're going to constantly train and we're going to play Saturday and Sunday, I think that time, realistically it can be made up. It can be made up. But it's going to take a lot of effort. It's going to take a lot of commitment, and it's going to take a lot of discipline, because if you've got players that really want cup match, they are the ones that, I mean, if the clubs come up with a plan of how they're going to go ahead and do it, I'm praying and I'm hoping that the players are just as enthusiastic to say, okay, they've said that, we're going to go ahead and have it. I'm going to be fully committed to the cause because I know how important it is for the general public. I know the significance of Cup Match is. So I'm hoping that they will put in the effort and extra effort to go ahead and say, I'm going to at least be, I'm not going to be 100% fit, but at least I could be 75% fit, and I could put in a good effort and I could put in a good show because of the occasion. And I think that even during Cup Match, I think that they will be catered to watch their bodies in a sense that, of course, you might have water break a little bit more often, and they might have those things. But I honestly believe that those players can put in a good effort. It's 6 weeks. It's not bad. It's not bad.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but usually preseason you have practice matches and all, right? Even before you get to go ahead to when the league's going to start. So if clubs were really, really interested, they would have been finding out from the health department, could they have had practice matches today? Could they have had a practice match yesterday? Because what you want, you're waiting for the league to start. Why are you waiting for the league to start when you could have been having practice matches if your field was ready? Because that's extra training. That's extra things that you could have been doing. But waiting for the league to start is a hold up of saying, oh, well, we're waiting. We're waiting. We'll wait again. So literally you're going to go into the season without a practice match when you could have arranged one already or two. So just food for thought.
Yep.
Just food for thought. Well, gents, hopefully we will be able to talk cricket and matches next week if we get the go-ahead to start the league. Obviously, on another note, Delray Rollins was in the Sussex Sharks team that played 2 games, 1 game on Friday, 1 game on Saturday. They won both their matches in the Blast, which is the T20. They made it to the finals 2 years ago, got knocked out in the semi-final or quarterfinal last year. I guess they're still waiting for Archer to return. I know he's got a lot of England duties to go through, but they have a young 16-year-old who kind of helped them, guided them through victory yesterday. So they have one of the youngest teams in the league. They're iffy in the 4-day, but in the T20, I think that's where their fans. I believe they had 5,000. They allowed 5,000 into their grounds on Saturday to watch the game. So they were delighted to have the crowd back. So, we look forward to that. We have a bunch of youngsters who are also playing in clubs over in the UK, playing this weekend. So, we will have more cricket to talk about and performances and all, hopefully next week during the Island Stats Cricket Show. All right?
Thanks a lot, Earl.
All right, Doc, be safe. Get that other light blue background. We want that next week, please. That's the one we want next week. Not this one that you have here.
Next week.
The one that you had. I shouldn't have said, Dean, I shouldn't have said nothing.
No, you shouldn't have said nothing at all.
Well, folks, Doc has come home. Have a good night.
Take care.